Hello, my name is Siri. Welcome to my channel. It's been a while since I talked about Howl, Chuu's first solo mini album, and if you recall, if you watched that video, that was a very personal album to me. It had a lot of very personal meaning. Since then, Chuu has come out with her Strawberry Rush mini album, which is less personal to me. It doesn't speak to me quite as much, but it still has a lot of things that I think are very fun and that I want to talk about. There are a lot of motifs. There are a lot of there's some existentialism that we can talk about. If you've been on the channel, I love existentialism. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff I want to talk about. If I have the restraint to not post this earlier, I'm posting this video on my birthday, so there's that. um Fun times. um yeah, I just want to talk about Strawberry Rush, and hopefully in the upcoming, I say upcoming months. I don't say that as if I'm not going to post any content. Hopefully I will be posting more content again. I want to make a video on Hotel de Luna again because I have a bunch of notes that I've been compiling while rewatching it, and like pages and pages of notes. And so hopefully there'll be a long video just kind of going through all of my notes and discussing it, just doing an in-depth analysis. So hopefully someone will enjoy that. Someone will look forward to that. Um, I I really it's been a passion project, so I'm looking forward to it. But we have to go into Strawberry Rush, of course, starting with the title track. And it starts with I Can't Get Enough, that's Strawberry Rush. I like this opening because it starts with that. I have an affinity for when people in the songs say that, because I feel like it brings this affection, this specificity, and also it being that's or that is. There's sort of a metaphor here. Love is this strawberry rush. In the first verse, we have a flare of danger and overcome heart, which is very similar to that with this affection and specificity. It's also identifying subjects in an interesting way. There's not a full sentence, it's just these subjects that you're giving attention to. There's also ace and deton combined with the repetition of yeah. I like that rushes is not conjugated for two subjects. Um, they say rushes my footsteps and I run, and they're running because they're rushed, sort of building up to all of this action in the pre-chorus where they identify alpha, really making it clear that this is an apostrophe and they're out of range of the signal of the person that they are talking to, really making it clear this is an apostrophe. There's a lot of onomatopoeia, there's the reception error, which is interesting, kind of othering the subject. And there are a lot of stressed syllables. There's consolation going on, and I like that they combine the lines. There's a line about being together, and there is this just sense of togetherness. And then in the chorus, again, they bring in that. There's affection, but it's not ontological in this line. They make it clear that they are eager to act for others. There's some stuffed lines, but talking as if brief. There's repetition of stressed language, emphasizing amounts. There's a command for the sake of others. There's consolation in the form of the self, but also in the form of a star. And they kind of try to be mundane in order to represent self-actualization. They talk about time, once I'm in orbit, and they say feeling good, I'm feeling good. So they're without the self originally, but with emotion. And then in the parenthetical, they kind of introduce the self again, sort of in this reflection. And they're connecting with each other in the moment. They're connecting with the subject in the moment, but it's not something that they can do easily. They can't find the sign. And then in the pre-chorus, there's instability in landing. There are commands amounting to claiming responsibility for the self, and they're kind of telling the self, embracing the self, self is listed in three. It's all very interesting. Then in the bridge, they say the way, just identifying the subject. There's a lack of are, they say the way you looking at me rather than the way you are looking at me, despite being in the present. Um, they say thinking I make believe. The only I in this verse is in the time they're talking about being make believe. They say make you smile, make you scream, make you smile, make you scream. There is only the predicate. They're stuffing more. There's an aphra. There's alliteration. It's all. I feel like I always say it's all very interesting, but I think that this is a well constructed song. I think that the others are a little bit more interesting in how they kind of tie together. So we'll move on to those. And we have Honeybee. I think Honeybee is very fun. I think it's very understated. It kind of starts with after the rain stopped above the dazzling sky, warmth, warmth. There's specificity when, where, the feeling that they're experiencing. They're talking to themselves, not wanting to impose. They convey their relationship with their surroundings. It's an apostrophe, but they elevate themselves with talking about the bass gallery. And they're talking to the subject in a very courteous way. In the pre-chorus, there's again specificity, where they are in relation to other things. There's a metaphor here with you are the interest rate. There's it kind of conveys that specifically at the core you are growing and you are to be paid in interest. In in a sense of you are interesting, people will pay attention to you. And there are commands, but they're very simple with potential, find and take off. In the chorus, it's kind of intimate and cyclical. Uh, the words flying push the song along. They merge internal and end rhyme, again, pushing the song along. There's a fun analogy, there's a falling analogy. Falling also pushes the song along, and they are unable, but they say they are unable, but they are tonally happy. And there is the inclusion of the word honey, showing they've been altered in themselves. They're not just to be, they're a honeybee. In the second verse, there are separate directions to go, and no space to do things like sleep. They are stuffed. The lines are stuffed. There's a universality being mentioned. There is the reversal of the kind of fondant analogy with a simile, and you know, they're almost conveying that the honey is like a part of them. And there are tripping stipulations, uh, and the way that it's added on makes it seem like a light sort of thing. Um, they give space and attention. There are lonely days of the past with you, which it's interesting, you could look at it as lonely days of the past with you. What is the past with you? There are just interesting ways of breaking that down and looking at it in different ways. And then in the pre-chorus, they're sort of taking notes and they're building to uh more to be more simply all-consuming. And then in the outro, it's this celebration with an interesting trajectory that they're discussing. Daydreamer is definitely fun because we start getting into more of the motifs. It starts with setting the scene of reality. It's kind of simple and grim with like an empty and intense feeling, kind of white room syndrome going on. All they really describe is the crooked pillow, but they also talk about eyes that won't open, slow steps, gentle wind, and they're like in front of the window, like to watch. So it feels very close, but we're not really getting any of the surroundings. Like the crooked pillow, if you even count that as part of the environment, is all we get. With the actual description, we're more close to the speaker. There's a wholesome nature to things. They're kind of understanding the self as well, and there's a sense of fullness. In the second verse, they say, I open the door as it is. As it is interesting phrasing. They're still not describing the surroundings or even the situation. They're describing the action, but nothing really else. And there is some onomatopoeia going on. They say a chew, and this sneeze is kind of a sign of transition into fantasy. It's sort of as I say later, bleeding into fantasy, going into this daydreamer mode. Um, they note this imagined horse, they note that it's imagined, and I looked it up because they talk about a horse with horns, and I was wondering if it was trying to talk about bulls in some way, like if it was kind of going along those lines. They're not closely related, so it's not really implying something problematic in the same way as a bull, which is interesting. They also say even the imagined horse with horns doesn't seem strange at all. Why I? And it's even the imagined horse with horns drop a line doesn't seem strange at all, comma, why I. So there's some interesting stuff going on with the subject. The I is placed in question at the end of this sentence that it wouldn't really be connected to, but it is. And when I first read it, I thought that there should be an it. Like it doesn't seem strange at all why I see what they're doing now with the horse being the subject, but it felt like there was a disconnect here that I did not recognize when I was first reading it. So there's strange grammar going on, and it is interesting that that is going on as we're bleeding into fantasy. And there's this sense of decadence. There's, they talk about red love, which is similar to the previous pink color. They talk about pink color in the chorus. I'm singing with my pink color, which feels very specific and intimate. Then in the bridge, they're talking about healing. There's no article. Uh, there's no article. They're talking about any healing. It's been a while since I had healing, just anything. There's a sense of levity here. They're kind of transitioning. They're signaling from the fantasy world, and they say like a lullaby. Even that lovely child is singing too. Even that lovely child and two. It's interesting phrasing. Even that too. They're familiar but separate, but united and nice. And the and then you may think it's hard to believe. I know that romantic dream that is being brought back. It's incorporated in bringing this from logos to pathos. And then the chorus, there's an aphra, even if, and it's kind of maximizing, even though it's kind of maximizing through minimizing. They talk about for real, which is that like for reality? Uh, you could question that. They used up what is considered cheap. It doesn't speak for the heart. There's separation of a conjunction and a comma. Um, the heart is living in the heart, which is interesting. My heart still feels the same way living inside my heart, which we'll talk about more. This idea of how does your heart exist? What is your heart? Who are you? They talk about waking up and they're talking to the daydreaming self. Living in reality is described as oversleeping, and overall, just intimate, familiar, trusting feelings. Getting into the motifs, uh, it starts with, well, starts with ooh, my steps are ooh, ooh, getting lighter, ooh, leading me into a dream, ooh, wishes of my desire. There's, the subject and the predicate in the first line. My steps are, technically, that is a full sentence, but it's very much teasing. There's a lightness that follows heavier ad-libbing. In the second line, they're talking about getting lighter, but they double up on the oohs. Then leading into a dream, it's a dependent clause despite lucidity. Kind of implying independence. And then wishes of my desire. It's sort of a definition of a dream that they're talking about. They say leading me into a dream, but it's also more of a definition of what it is to dream. There's alliteration with finally fulfilled feeling, very much stuffed very fulfilled. And then they have this sort of simple contentment, this independence. This feels like a playground just for me. Good. Um, and then in the pre-chorus, there are a bunch of subjects, a somewhat mysterious scenery, this unfamiliar journey. Uh, there's a qualifier that almost elicits more questions, and and the unfamiliar is somehow specifying. Um, and then they have this line, oh, I'll just close my eyes and enjoy it. And this is a complex sentence. This is a complex sentence, but it kind of, it uses the word just, which is interesting because you're talking about closed eyes. We talk about closed eyes a lot, implying greater moral sight. So using just, attaching just to something like that is interesting. But there's also this sense of acceptance and enjoyment and a purity. And then in the chorus, they're more specific in terms of time, which is interesting versus, which is interesting when you take it into consideration versus being the idea of being daring. You're very specific in a moment versus your rebellious nature is sort of all encompassing. Um, and then they say, I forget everything that stops me, which is interesting because it's in the present tense. Um, so it's they're forgetting what stops them in the present, implying that it's not stopping them. There's also the idea of I versus me. I forget everything that stops me. There's a degree of separation there that I think we need to come back to. Um, they're kind of getting into their specific personal space, and forgetting almost clarifies how they're existing, which is interesting, kind of sort of a retrograde interference kind of things from your future, altering your memory of things in the past. Um, and then there's existence as moving, as following a heart that they once lived in. In Daydreamer, they were talking about living in a heart, whereas now they're talking about following it, which is interesting with the idea of separation of I and me. Verse 2 is very conversational. There's description, it's kind of intimate and close, and there is a line, I surrender to the gestures of the I surrender to the gesture of the wind, which is more long-winded. They're kind of leaning into that. There is a conversation going on, but maybe it isn't one that we can hear, with gestures. And with the pre-chorus, their imagination is mysterious. Despite them imagining things, those things remain mysterious to even them. And I chase the more honest me. Again, there is a difference between one me versus another. This is one that they chase, not follow. And then in the bridge, in they're questioning the dream while in it, and they're very clearly characterized by it. There's alliteration, there's sort of a flouncing about going on. There's epistrophe, there's an analogy with a swimming dreamer. There's a future, they're talking about the future as if everything is in the present. There's epistrophe, analogy, a leisurely dreamer. It says leisure. And these things are all within their grasp, with the now, now, now. Um, and them being within the lucid dream space. And then in the final chorus, there's a clear effect of the dream going on, more confident than any other day, a dreamer. I want to erase the boredom of reality. In my own world, I dream on more fun. I don't want to wake up from this dream too soon. There's an effect. So what does it mean to wake up too soon? If the effect is taking form, what does it mean to wake up too soon? What are the what is the threat of waking up is what I want to know. And we see the experience of unreality going on here. This is a song that is surprisingly hard for me to speak about because I am perplexed by a specific aspect of this song, which we'll get to. Actually, we'll get to it very fast, but anyway. Starts with "Love is so sweet." Now it's immediately gustatory, uh, and making a fact, love is so sweet, kind of metaphorical, talking about yes, love is sweet in the sense of it's enjoyable, but also it's sweet in the sense of like a candy, like a dessert. Melting softly like this, we have more of a tactile element. I like the like this because as we've talked about with, that, I just like the specificity, but like not exactly telling us what it is, just being like this familiar thing. And then just bite it, baby, just bite it. It's tactile, but in a different way from melting. They're talking about it. They're talking about it while playing with, calling you baby. And there's repetition to convey the importance of this bite, of you biting it. The first verse starts with "You're curious, aren't you?" They know, but they're confirming in a question. "I can't hold my attention" is simple, but stuffed in comparison to the following lines. They can't drop it down a line either. Um, Whereas "Our eyes meet as we hesitate." It's sparse and even paced. Um, they talk about feeling the tension sneakily, which is so interesting because it's like the tension and they're feeling it. It's the tension. It's something they're feeling, but they're feeling it sneakily, which it's all so peculiar but so nice. I don't know why. Um, yeah. And then that sweet dream, let's go. They identify the dream and they're able to just go, which is not necessarily something they always had with talking about the daydreaming. And then they say the accumulated excitement rises. Accumulated feels very literal, but it also gets at the root of what's going on. Like it's quickly growing. You can't really stop it. Um, to the point of dizziness is interesting because you have "to the point," which is very, you know, pointed, and then dizziness, which is, you're kind of floundering. You it's this, I mean, it could be described as a state of unreality. The heart that has taken a step closer might just melt away completely. There's personification, and also it's in contrast to the idea of following the heart. The heart is instead taking a step, and they're kind of describing this sweet oblivion going on, which is fun as well. And then the chorus, the taste is, and the chorus, "Taste of something so sweet on the tip of your tongue, I'm sweet like chocolate." The taste existence comes first. It's a descriptor. We know where we are. We know where the chocolate is. Their descriptor. I'm sweet like chocolate. This is where I get confused, which sounds so stupid. I'm confused by "I'm sweet like chocolate," but is it just a simile or is it also a metaphor? Because it's like chocolate. Clear simile. I'm sweet. You can be sweet in a personality way. You're kind, you are pleasant to be around, but that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about being like a candy. So when you're saying "I'm sweet," is that like saying "I'm a sweet"? Is that a metaphor? I don't know. I think that depends on who you ask, which is interesting. Does anyone else understand what I mean? I feel stupid saying it's a metaphor, but it feels like a metaphor. It feels like it is simultaneously a metaphor and a simile, which is not something you see that often, or at least it's not so tied together, you know? Um, the more you fill it up, I'll give you all that sweet heart chocolate. This is interesting because it's like you make my heart, I give it to you. In this way, essence is preceding existence, it's coming first, kind of like a man-made object. It's made with something in mind. At the same time, you could argue that that is symbolic. Uh, that is implicating living in bad faith. You're living in accordance to someone else rather than yourself, which is interesting with the separation of you and your heart and the separation of yous. There's almost a sort of world building going on. In the Chuu universe, you and your heart are separate. You are separate. And that's so interesting to me. It's like an interesting idea to play with and build upon. Um, and then verse two, there's a lot of rhyming going on. There's near end rhyme on song Kong. There's near internal rhyme this king. But just before the end, and it's arguably attached to perfect masculine rhyme song Kong. There's internal near rhyme teeth need. Near masculine rhyme need me. Near masculine rhyme need scene zine need zine as in limousine. And this entire verse is pretty much just building up a bunch of ethos. Um, no, you like when I sing this song, I'm the queen and you're like King Kong. I know I can tame you. Got what you need. Boy, you addicted to me. I'm in a white limousine. All of that, just building up this ethos of I am I am all of these great things. And then the pre-chorus, they're talking about, layered expressions, layered like desserts. Um, you're already full, they're perfectly satiated. And the words hidden deep in the drawer seem like they'll spill out soon. It's like a special sweet, hidden from a child, or a ring hidden from your special person. And there's sort of an inevitability to the spilling out that I enjoy. And then and then the bridge, there's a metaphor, there's a simile, there's alliteration, chocolate, lips, near end rhyme, uh, olit, erget. There's anaphora again, and perfect masculine rhyme. There's repetition. There's not really anaphora or epistrophe in what you like, what you like, what you like. But there is near masculine rhyme. And it ends with, a definition, a flavor for you. There's a definition of who this is all for. And then the final chorus ends with the heart lingering on your lips. I'll give it to you. Chocolate. Let's go. Let's go. It's that. It uses that, which I enjoy. It's made personal. You already had this heart, but it is now also being given to you, which is a special layer, for lack of better phrasing. I did not appreciate it as much as I do now. And having read the lyrics, I find that it is a great addition to Chuu's discography. I feel like Chuu's discography is very underrated. I see a lot of people talking about Loossemble. I see a lot of Rep Loossemble. I see a lot of people talking about Yves. I don't see a lot of people talking about Chuu's music. I don't see people saying Chuu's music is really good, but it is. I think I listen, I love Yves' music. I haven't listened to a bunch of Loossemble. I've listened to a quite a bit of ARTMS. Choose my favorite. I mean, I maybe that should be obvious. She's my bias, but like, Chuu's music is just so good. I even saying that this album didn't speak to me as much as Howl did, it does speak to me. It does, and the whole world building aspect is something I'm really interested in, because we have sort of a bit of world building in her music videos as well, because we have the characters from Howl, their names are escaping me, I'm sorry. The characters from Howl are in the Strawberry Rush music video, so I'm very interested in how that will develop and progress and everything. And I'm just excited for the Chuu cinematic universe, the CCU. Um, I can't wait for new Chuu music. I'm hoping that she'll come near me again so that I can see her again. I'm so satisfied. Um, which is a good feeling. I'm really happy today. I don't know why. And that I'm gonna leave you with that. I'm happy, which is a weird feeling because I have not been this happy in a while. So, thank you. Um, yeah. I Happy birthday to me. Oh, I did. You can't see. I talk with my hands. I've been thinking about this. I talk with my hands so much, and you can't even see it. Can't see me talking with my hands. That's so disappointing, but I'm not going to use a camera. I'm not going to do it. Not anytime soon. But, you know, this is fun.